Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be chatting with you today. And we're going to be planning out your content until 2018, June 2018. I am so excited to do this little masterclass for you guys. It's just a special treat to thank you for being in the community. I am doing much better with this little cold voice thing that I have going on, but I have meetings like the rest of the afternoon, so we'll see how my voice holds up. Like yesterday, I felt like I was about to lose my voice, but I actually feel really, really good. My coughing fits are almost gone. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get right into things. As you're coming on, please go ahead and say hi, even if you're watching the replay. And this is going to be a live that you're probably going to want to save. You're going to probably want to pin it or whatever you do. I think it's safe. Save it, and you want to grab your notebooks and take notes. Do you like my notebooks? They're filled with kids' doodles. And you're going to want to save this and get this so where you can actually work through things as we go. And if you're watching the replay, you can just pause and answer the questions as you're going along. Okay, so let's dig right in. I'm so excited. Okay. So basically what happened is, over the last 3 years, I've been creating content and showing up online and being more visible. And what was happening is, especially in the beginning stages when I was brand new, I was a brand new coach, and I was like, I'm doing all this stuff for free. What's the deal? How do I make the most and really get the most ROI for the time I'm investing in all of the content that I'm creating and all the things? And I am an absolute creative soul. So for me, I really just enjoyed my downtime writing. When I first started, I was just blogging. So just blogging, just sitting there and being creative was so fulfilling to me and just so different than how I was working at my 9-to-5 job, where I was it was that soul sucking, right? So what I wanted to share is kind of my journey and what I've really learned over the last 3 years about how to create content that is not only fulfilling for you and helps you get creative and, but also effective for getting sales, getting clients, and really filling up your programs. Because, you want it to be a creative process. You want it to be fun and really, really engaging and allow you to get creative. And at the same time, you want it to be profitable for your business. You want it to impact your bottom line. It's really important that it does, so you can continue to serve your people and show up and really help those that you serve. So one of the things, the very first thing, is a mindset shift, right? So yes, it's free content that we are creating, but the first mindset shift is that it has to be for the purpose of, connecting with your audience. It's really all about that connection. Hey, as you're coming on, say hi in the chat bar. So it's really about, connecting with your audience. It's really about getting out there. It's really about being seen and being visible and getting your ideas and your thoughts out there, which is really cool, because it's as you're coming up with the ideas, as you're refining your thoughts, your ideas, your processes, you can start to share them in content and really refine and tweak and get live input on those ideas. So it's really, really cool if you're creative to really work on that side of things. So, and by the way, if you don't consider yourself creative, we're going to talk about how you can have some structure around things and some processes so that it can feel really, really easy, even if you don't feel creative. Okay. So basically what I do is I take my 6-month calendar and I will divide it up into 2-month chunks. I used to do monthly chunks. And hey, Kara, how are you? Good morning. So I used to do monthly chunks where every month I was having a new thing, a new promotion. And I really quickly pretty much almost burned out. I almost totally quit my business, total transparency, because I was burning myself out, because I was trying to do a promotion every single month, because I was starting at 0 every month instead of creating long-term revenue in my business and creating a foundation. And so I want to share that with you because part of it is like changing the way your whole business structure is, and that's not what we're going to do. But what we're going to do here is really map out your content, and I want yourself to give yourself a ramp up time for your promotions in your content so that you're building up that excitement, so that you're building up that like desire for the thing that you sell, okay? So that's the first part. You're going to divide it into 2-month blocks. If you feel like 2 months is still not enough, maybe you want to do 3-month blocks, go ahead and do that too. Either way, so you're basically going to end up with 2 3-month blocks, or you're going to end up with 3 2-month blocks. Oh my gosh, say that 3 times. As you're coming on, say, hi, good morning. I'm so excited to do this. If you're excited to plan your content, type a yes in the comments box for me. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, and if you remember the recent Content That Converts challenge, we talked about start with the end in mind, right? So each of these 2-month blocks is going to be centered around a theme, a promotion, something that you sell in your business. So instead of looking at like 6 months and being like, what the hell am I putting in these 6 months? You're going to put it up into 2-month blocks, and you're going to say, okay, for these 2 months, I'm going to be focused on this program that I sell, which gives this specific results. Rivka, I hope I pronounced your name right. Rivka, do you plan for 6 months worth of content at a time in 2-month blocks? So right now, I am planning the next 2 months. This is actually part of what I was going to say at the end, but I'll say it here so that you understand and like get a grasp of the whole thing. So I am very creative, as I said in the beginning. I like to be inspired. So what I do is I have every 2 months, I sit down and I will plan out the next 2 months in a very granular way. So all the way down to outlining, and sometimes even all the way down to writing out the whole post. But on a weekly basis, I like to be inspired and still have that creativity in my content. So I don't plan out too granularly on a 6-month basis, because I honestly have tried doing that and I will divert away from it because I like to be creative. So if you're a planner, you can go ahead and use this process and map everything out and do everything on a very granular level. In fact, one of my mastermind sisters, she plans out her content 6 months, even a year ahead of time. And she will actually like stick with it and just like, she's done. I can't do that. I really like to be involved, and I really like to have a pulse on my audience and the feedback and that interaction, the creativity between my content and my audience. So I will do 2 months at a time max. And those last couple posts in that 2 months, I give myself some leeway, and I'm going to tell you exactly what to do to get to those, like, what are we talking about on a weekly basis. But like those last couple weeks, I will give myself some leeway in case I want to start my next promotion a little early, or I want to extend my current promotion. So I give myself a little bit of leeway. And again, we're always working from start with the end in mind. Rivka says, I have a hard time planning in advance because I also love to be creative and have a pulse on my audience, like you said. Yeah, so if that's you, what I'm going to give you some processes you can use for the later parts. Like I'm going to give you a process, and then I'm also going to help you to just, if you're creative and or if you only have like one program, right? Or you're not really even sure what you're going to sell over the next 6 months, like that just is way too far of a window for you. Just focus on what's your next promotion over the next 2 months. That is going to just help you to be somewhat planned and still have a pulse on your audience and still give yourself wiggle room to be, inquisitive and intuitive about like what is your next program. But it's also going to give you some structure so that you're making sure that you can convert as much as possible as well. Okay. And again, this whole thing, like anytime that I'm talking about your business or, helping you get clients or anything about your business, remember that this is your business. You can do it the way that you want. So for you, take these ideas, take other ideas from other teachers, and create your own system. That's how you're going to find what really works for you. I just shared two vastly different ways of doing things. The way I do it, which is like, I will have a rough estimate of like what I'm selling for 6 months, and then I'll plan out the 2 months of content at a time. And I talked about my mastermind sister who plans 6 months to a year ahead of time and is totally cool with that. So again, why does the system work? It's because I've created it to be my own, and you can do the same thing. So take ideas from here, take ideas from other teachers you may have heard of, but really what I want you to do is create something that works for you. Okay, so, okay. I kind of lost my spot a little bit because I went off. Okay. So what I want you to do is look at what is that next promotion. And we have to obviously, like, even if you're going to do the 6 months in a row, right? Like you're going to sit down and plan out the next 6 months. You can still only plan 2 months at a time. So what I want you to do is, if you need to, go back and rewind and plan the next 2 months, and then rewind and plan the next 2 months, or save this video so that when 2 months is up, you can come and watch this again. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at what is the program that we're going to fill. So what is that program and the promise of the program that we're trying to fill? So any program in your business has a promise, right? So it has basically what it is that we're selling. Now, some people don't like the word promise, so I'm just going to explain it in a different way. In other words, what is it that they get? What is it that they get when they purchase this program? So what we want to do is look at that, and that is our ultimate goal, because we need to explain what it is that they're going to get, and we need to meet them where they are. So that is another really, really important part of content creation, is like, we want them to be here, and that's, you know, what our program helps them with. But sometimes they need some climbing ladders to get them there, because maybe they're not there yet. Okay, so what I want you to do is ask yourself, what are the questions that my people normally have about this topic, this problem, this thing that I sell? So I'm going to give you an example, really, really basic. Let's say my course is on SEO. Of course, I chose like not a super sexy example, but anyways. So let's say my course is on SEO, and it's like all about SEO and how to maximize your Google search, optimization for your blog, and then what else can we talk about the course? Maybe people are like, what is SEO? Another question might be like, how do I do SEO, right? Like there's a lot of questions about that, right? And so what you want to do is you want to list out all of the questions that people have about your program, about the topic that you teach about. And here's the system, right? I promised you guys I would give you a system for doing this. What you're going to do is you're going to keep a running tab, like a running Google Doc or a sheet or whatever, a paper. I don't care how you decide to do your system, but you're basically, anytime somebody private messages you on Facebook, anytime you see a question in a Facebook group, anytime you see a question in a LinkedIn group or any other place, online or offline, when people ask you a question, you write it down. And that is your system for getting an infinite number of ideas every single day to what are you going to talk about in your business and create content around. Now, you don't have to answer every single question, because you'll find that a lot of them will be like around the same topic, right? Or they will be like kind of showing you patterns. And so it's important that you actually write them all down so that you can start to see the patterns. And number two, like, just release some of the pressure from having to know everything and just open your ears up so that you can hear what your audience is asking and really wanting, okay? So where are they when they're asking this question? I want you to like go into their headspace, right? Like where are they at the beginning of the program? Where are they when they're asking these questions? Like, what is really going through their mind? What is going on with them? And when you start to get those answers, you'll start to really see and paint that picture for yourself of your clients and your potential clients and where they are. And this is where, when I talked about having that pulse between myself and my audience, this is where kind of like that part happens, right? Because we need to have sympathy and empathy for where they are and where they're trying to go. So often, as like we continue to learn and grow and develop our career and our field and our knowledge in our field, what happens is we forget what we don't know, right? And that's why I like the idea of keeping a questions log, and why this has been one of the most helpful things I've ever done in my business. Because if I'm not constantly keeping track of where my people are, I get way too far ahead of myself, right? Because I'm trying to think of like the things I don't yet know, and then I forget, like, oh my gosh, yes, there's some simpler things that I could be talking about that are not exactly where my learning is at the time, okay? I know that sounds a little confusing, but okay. So next, what I want you to think about and talk about and really picture in your head is, where are your people at the end of the program? So if your program is like, we've been using the SEO example, right? So maybe at the end of going through the program, they get ranked number 1 on Google search for one of their blog posts, okay? Now, here's what happens a lot with my clients. So let's talk about it. A lot of times my clients are afraid of giving that promise because they're like, well, what if Google doesn't participate, right? Or like, what if their blog post doesn't catch on, or whatever. And what I want to say about that is, you want to think about a true student who actually went through your program and what was their best result. The other thing I want you to think about as well is, there's a way that you can not overpromise and still highlight what's possible, okay? And that's kind of where you get to play around with it, right? Not underselling yourself, and also making sure that they see exactly what's possible for them. And for me in my business, this has been like an evolving thing where I want to share what's possible, and yet I don't want to promise anyone $1 million business, right? Because that's not where I am yet. That's not where my people are yet. So really just making sure that you're still doing this in a way that's in integrity, and also not underselling yourself. Because what I often find is more people are underselling themselves than overselling themselves. So that is something that I want you to be mindful of with that question. Okay, next. Think about we're going to go into two parts of this, okay? And by the way, all of these questions are going to become content, and I'm going to show you how to weave that all together, but I want to make sure that you know exactly where you're going to be creating your content from, so that you can get that ROI on your content. Okay, so 2 things. There's an internal problem and there's an external problem. Those are marketing speak, but really what I want you to ask yourself the question is, what is the problem going on in their mind? How do they feel in their body, in their mind, in their experience of the world as they have the problem that you solve, okay? What is that internal dialogue? What is the internal struggle? What are their fears? Like that psychological side. That side is the internal problem. I want you to write that out. So if you're watching the replay, pause. If you're on live, write that out. And if you can, type it in the comments. Let me know what your person's internal struggle is. What is going on inside of their mind? I don't know why comments are not coming up all of a sudden. I know you guys are on here, so. Okay. Someone be brave. Like, I'm not going to judge you guys, like, honestly. So I'll give you examples from mine. Okay. So an internal struggle for my clients, right, usually is that they're afraid of sales. They think that they suck at sales. Kara, yay, I'm so proud of you. Okay. Thank you for answering. So for artists, too much technical details or work to do the marketing of their business. Yes, love that. Love it, love it, love it. So too much technical detail. So that means that they probably feel overwhelmed, right? Like they're feeling like they can't keep up with all of that technical work and the marketing, right? So like those are kind of like, now that she said that, right, you can kind of start to see what that internal mental picture is for the person. And that is really important because that's how you connect with your audience. In the beginning, I talked about how I like to connect with my audience. And this is part of that, right? This is part of it because if you hear, if you talk to the internal struggle, what happens is they feel like you get them and that you hear them. Not only that, you actually start to actually hear them and get them because they're going to be more vocal back to you. Yeah, and she said overwhelmed and not comfortable selling. Yeah, this is so common, right? And a lot of you who are in like business to business type stuff, this is a big part of it, right? Is that fear of selling or fear of being pushy. Those are all parts of it, right? And not everybody has it. I know some people who work with people who are like, they're excellent at sales and they're, you know, they have really great confidence. So that, I mean, that's not everybody's ideal client. Let me just say that. But, right, there's a part of it for some people. Okay. So that's the internal struggle. Next, we're going to talk about the external struggle. The external struggle is what it would look like if Steven Spielberg were to create a video about it. Okay. So if a video, a movie, right? So if you were to see this on the big screen, what would the external problem look like? And the better you are at describing this as a script that you would give to a producer, the better your copy will be. Okay. So in a secretive way, this content planning session was really about copy. Okay. So what I want you to think about is, what does that picture look like if you were to create a movie? So I'm going to use my people as an example. Okay. So my people are struggling to get clients every time that they go to like promote something or sell something. They're like, I have no idea where clients would even come from. Like, I just don't even know. And yet they have like these followings, right? So maybe they have 100 people, 200 people on their list, right? But they still have no idea where clients might come from. What that might also look like is a bank account that, like at the beginning, I talked about how when I started my business, I was doing like every month I was doing promotions because I was starting at zero every month. So that could be another picture that I could paint as my ideal clients, because one of the things we work on is making recurring revenue in your business, right? So like that is another picture. Kara, for you, what is something that your artists can be like, what does that picture look like on the movie screen? And anybody else who's on, I know there's other people on, but you're being very quiet. So tell me what your external struggle looks like. The artist is on the street corner building up their art and just hoping somebody sees it and stops to ask about the art, but is more like a mime and doesn't want to shout out art for sale. So they go to the soup kitchen because they are starving. Ooh, so good. Oh my gosh. I could totally picture that whole scene, right? Like the mime, like they're just quiet there standing next to that piece of art, right? And then at the end of the day, they're going to the soup kitchen because they're not, you know, they're starving. Like they literally can't pay their bills through their art. Love it. So that is that external struggle. Okay, so you want to talk about the internal struggle and the external struggle. Both are important so that you can get really like that full level empathy for them, and also so that they can self-identify, right? Because if you've just described my life, I'm like, oh, that is me. I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's talk, right? And maybe not let's talk that first time they see you, but yeah, I'm going to continue to listen to your to your content. So that is really important. Now, okay. The key is here. Now, I'm looking at, like, let's go back to, like, if you have a calendar and you're planning it out, or if you're just doing it on a piece of paper, I want you to ask yourself, what are 8 questions that I can answer, 1 per week, to answer the questions for these people? And I want you to really think about the internal struggle and the external struggle. You don't have to, like, perfectly, like, always answer one on the internal, one on the external, or whatever. But what I want you to do is ask, okay, what are the 8 questions that I can answer over the next 2 months that are going to show them that I understand their internal and external struggle, and that I have that, you know, that solution, right? So at the beginning, I also asked you guys to say, like, what is your best case study, right? How can you show them that? And how you can show them that is through sharing, you know, what is possible, right? So in there, you might have case studies, you might have testimonials, those kind of things. So those next, you know, you're going to just literally map out the next 8 weeks, 1 per week. What question are you answering? Okay, now, once you've mapped out the 8 weeks, I hope you guys had enough time. If you need more time, let me know. Okay, so now you've mapped out the 8 weeks. If you needed to pause this and you're watching the replay, pause. So now what we're going to talk about is, like, how does that piece of content look? Like, inside of the post, inside of the content, how does that look, right? How do I optimize that inside of the actual thing that I'm teaching or that I'm delivering? So I want to take you back, like old school, to high school English. And some of you might hate me for saying this reference, right? But it's very, very simple. For long form piece of content, so long form piece of content is basically what I call that long piece of content. So it can be videos, it can be blog posts, it can be podcasts, anything that's like longer and you're gonna go in more depth. You wanna have at least 1 per week that you're creating of this type of content. Some of you who are more advanced, or you have a full team, you might be creating this more than once a week. Me personally, I create it more than once a week, but I'll do it in different places. So I do a Facebook Live in this group every week. I do one on my business page every week. I do a podcast every week. And they're all different places, and they all are slightly different content. And all of them end up on my YouTube channel. And we're working on optimizing that, by the way, which is why SEO is still kind of the top of my mind right now. Okay. So basically, what I want you to go back to English class and just remember the basics of a proper paper. It's introduction first, and then in English class they call it thesis statement, but in marketing they call it a hook. So the introduction just basically gives them an overview of, like, this is what we're going to do or what you're going to get out of this, and the hook tells them why it's important for them to stay. So I'm going to give the example of this Facebook Live because you just watched it. So in the introduction, I said, in this live, we're going to be planning out your content until June 2018. And so, what I want to take you back, like old school, to high school English. And some of you who are more advanced, or you have a full team, you might be creating this more than once a week. For long form piece of content, so long form piece of content is basically what I call that long piece of content. then what I basically said is, hey, when I started my business 3 years ago, like I was really struggling with content creation because I wasn't sure how I was going to make money through my free content, right? So that was really highlighting that like internal struggle of the fear and like the the confusion. And also I talked about, and I don't know if I actually talked about it, but this was in what I had planned to say, was, I'm busy with my kids and everything else that I'm doing in my life. And so how do I have time to do all this stuff for free? And so then I centered it around like ROI is the big thing, right? So then that's when we went into the hook. And so the hook is like, what the goal is for this live is for you to not only plan your 2018 content, but also to get the maximum ROI on that time that you've invested in being here, in planning, and all of that. So that's the first part, then the hook, and then the body. And the body is basically like the points. And then the conclusion, you summarize everything. And then at the end, you want to have a call to action. Now, why am I going over this? Why is this important? This is important because what you can simply do, it's super, super easy. What you simply do is if you create that one piece of long form content for the week, you can take those points that you have mentioned. Like, so let's say it's a blog post about 3 ways to create, a killer Facebook image. Okay. I don't know. This is just totally off the top of my head. Well, each of those 3 ways can be 3 different posts you can repurpose on social media. And I call social media short form content because they're more like, it's shorter and they're like more like quicker tips and things that you want to get engagement around. And so when I talked at the beginning about how I like to have a pulse on my audience and what they're saying and thinking around each thing that I'm creating, this is how I do that, is I will break down those longer form pieces of content and I will actually put them on social media so that I can continue to have that conversation on social media. Now, piece of warning, we can't just only use social media for repurposed content. This is a mistake I've made and I've seen other people making it. And what I've mentioned this in other lives recently, where like one of my goals is to just share a lot more of behind the scenes and what I'm doing, what I'm working on, and have it be more real time. So I use that so that I stay consistent, but I also still sprinkle in what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm going through on a very day-to-day, very helpful thing, or very like living, breathing thing, right? So that's how it also can be really authentic and genuine, right? Because you don't want it to be too like processized that it's not personal anymore. Okay. So next, what you can just simply do, and this is what I was going to say at the end here, is that, oh, thanks, Kara. So this is what I was going to say too at the end here, is that you can do this on a weekly basis so that you are doing it once a week. Or like I said, you can plan this out, schedule it all out on your social media scheduler. Like you can literally do this any way that you want. And so if you're jiving right now on these 8 topics and you want to go in more depth here, by all means, go in more depth here. And then towards the end of those 2 months, I want you to actually put this on your phone as a reminder, because you don't want to get to the end of 2 months and be like, oh my gosh, now I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, right? So put actually a scheduling thing in place where it reminds you and says, oh, hey, let's start planning for the next, 2 months or the next 3 months, however you want to do it. Now, that is one way to do it, right? The other way to do it is continue to outline everything very top level, just the outline. Maybe it's the 3 points you're going to cover under each question you're answering. Maybe you're going to cover about 3 points. And then you outline everything for the next 6 months. That's another way to do it. And then the third and final way is to go totally granular, where you actually sit there and batch and create all of the content at once for 6 months at a time. This is all, like I said, totally personal preference and depends on your style and your way of doing things. It's the most important thing is that you find a way that works for you and a system that works for you so that you can actually use it and be consistent with it. So anyone have any questions as you're moving through this? Anyone have any questions, anything coming up for you? While you're typing, I just want to say, I want to invite everybody here to let's get on the phone and chat, because I am starting a brand new program. It's called Rise, and it's all about revolutionary impact through selling ethically. So it's really all about improving your sales processes, improving your marketing, improving your one-on-one sales, improving, any type of sales that you're doing in your business, and really getting, much better at it so that you can reach your people and create more impact through your business. And it's a one-on-one program. So if you want to chat about it, just send me a private message and let's have a talk about it. It looks like people are hopping on now. So let me just summarize and go through everything that we just talked about. Basically, what we want to start with if we're creating our next 6 months of content is you want to break down and actually ask yourself, what are you going to be selling in each of the focus areas? So I call them focus areas. I divide the 6 months into 2-month increments so that I don't have first of all, I've found that 1 month was just too short for me and I wasn't having ample ramp up time and I was just really getting burned out. Some people find that 3 months is better, and you might be asking yourself, well, hold on a second, if I use 3 months or 2-month promotional periods, how am I going to create revenue every month? And that's actually something that we work on in my one-on-one program, the Rise one that I just talked to you about. Okay, so next what you're going to do is ask yourself key questions about what is the promise and what is it that they're actually getting from that program. And you're going to ask yourself, what questions are people having about this program or about this topic or about all of this? You're going to talk about the internal and the external struggle and really just map out the questions throughout the next 2 to 3 months. And then each post is going to have, introduction, body, and conclusion. And that body section, you can actually take and repurpose that into social media posts. April says, I've been so afraid to actually get started. Not exactly sure of my direction yet. Outlining speaks my language. Yay! So happy to hear that, April. Yeah, totally. And this is what happens, right? Is we see what other people are doing. And I've even mentioned here, right? I said, I go live on this page, and that page, and I have a podcast, right? And that can feel really, really overwhelming. And so for anyone who's newer or just not even really sure where to start, just start with a single, when I literally started, I only had one blog post. It was a written blog post, one blog post a week, and I would repurpose each of those points. Like I just said, you're going to take each of the points of the body and repurpose it out for the whole week on social media. Of course, you're going to interweave your questions and your interaction posts, but really it's all about getting out there, and also just really having that fine-tuned pulse on your audience and what people are saying and what they're needing right now. And so we can do that really simply just through answering questions and making sure we're starting with that end in mind, right? Because, and if you're newer, I want to just also preface it with this, right? Maybe the first time you promote, it's not going to be like this flood of people coming in, right? At first, it's going to be smaller, right? It's going to be a smaller trickle. And so I don't want you to compare yourself to anybody else except yourself, right? So okay, maybe you did a live and maybe there was 0 people. And a month later, you're still going and you're still doing your live and now there's 1 or 2. That's okay, right? We all start with 0. And so that consistency, and that's why the consistency and the planning helps with the consistency, right? So the consistency is the key to making the snowball bigger. Okay. So the key pivotal moment of, are you going to grow or not, is in that pushing through that uncomfortable phase. And so you want to really just make sure that you remain consistent and that you keep going, even if it feels like you're not getting, a huge ROI, or you're not growing to thousands yet, right? Like, you're not going to, especially in the beginning. I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm trying to be realistic and just let you know that there's zero wrong with you. You're doing great. Just continue to show up, just continue to over deliver and serve your people, serve them. That's what it's all about, is making a difference, helping the people that are watching you. I do want to say one more thing too. On my podcast a couple weeks ago, I had Dr. Arian. She was my coaching certification professor, and she talked about something called invisible impact. And so what happens is there's a point where you're creating content and, you're creating it and nothing is coming back to you. Like, you're not even getting a like, you're not even getting a share. Like, you feel like it's not working. And yet, I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me or my clients, that you get out there that one other time and it's like a snowball, and people come to you and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for posting this, or that really, really resonated with me, right? So it's really just about getting out there, continuing, being persistent, and planning. And for me, planning is what lets me stay consistent. Okay. So last call, I'm just going to summarize one more time. If anybody is interested in my one-on-one program, it's called Rise. We're going to be working on selling with integrity and ease. And you can just private message me about it. If you found this helpful, please go ahead and share it with your friends, share it on your page, however you want to share it. And I'm going to hop off. If you need to watch the replay, watch the replay. Have an amazing day. Bye.